My name is Marcus. I'm from Backwoods Entertainment from Germany, and we're making adventure games. Our first game was the point-and-click adventure game Unforeseen Incidents, and now we're working on our second title, the Mystery Adventure Resort.
So I'm Julia from Naraven Games, and we made Ensenad, and we're showcasing today at the Indie Arena from Gamescom 2019.
Hi, I'm Cato. I run a studio called Krillbite Studio, which I've been doing for 4 years, and we're making quite artistic, emotional narrative games.
The game is about a small town that is threatened to be hit by a comet. And the comet is approaching the area somewhere in the middle of nowhere. And you play a writer, she's called Laura Tanner, and she comes to this town to interview the people there because they refuse to leave.
My game is a super short narrative story, like a walking simulator technically. It's a 3D narrative game where you play as a character waiting for his wife. You get voice messages telling you what to do when you have to do it, and the story unravels. Very emotional.
So our current game is called Mosaic. It's a game about modern life and the systems we surround ourselves and who sometimes bury us, and a desperate person's attempts and struggle to escape from these systems.
It's really more about diving into an atmosphere and letting you get carried in the story.
The game is actually about escapism and about introspection and emotions, and it's about finding yourself maybe, or thinking about coping. Is a large topic in the game, and because we have these topics in the game, we have this mechanism that the game world shapes while you play the game, because you make decisions with the main protagonist, and depending on your decisions and what you tell other characters, how you feel, the world shapes differently. The colors alter in the different versions of the game, and the saturation, and maybe the weather is different depending on how you see the world.
Krillbite Studio has always made games about real issues, real themes. Our first game, a horror game called Among the Sleep, is about a small child growing up in an abusive household. So we wanted to tackle something similar with our new game. And while Among the Sleep can be seen as like horror seen through a child's eye and imagination, Mosaic is more like the horror of adult life, being stuck in a job you hate, living in a city that is really hostile and isolates people and isn't really friendly, warm or anything. The hardest part of making a narrative emotional is to get the player involved, because you have to make the player feel connected and that this is relevant to the player, without forcing the feelings upon the player. The players should experience the game and then reflect upon what's going on in the game upon him or herself. So that's definitely the hardest part.
Voiceover directing, actor directing, it's very difficult. My game is about something light and a little comic, getting darker and scary, and it really should not appear funny, so that was very difficult. I would have loved to take more time to dive more into the characters' backstories. We put a lot of Easter eggs and references, pop culture game references, and people find it funny, but now when I think about it, I'm like, it does not make sense really with the characters. Maybe not a good idea to have all these Easter eggs.
Challenging is that it's a new game mechanic that isn't really known from other games, so we have to figure out how that works. How long does it take to feel good? Should it go really fast so the player can see the change, or does it have to be slow so it's not too obvious that the color changes, for example. But would you then still understand why it changes, stuff like that? So these are questions, very mechanical questions we have to deal with, and we have all of these questions before us right now because we're so early in development.
The other hard part about this, it's a game about the mundane, about the repetition we go through every day in normal life. It's a game about the boredom of modern life. So we had to make something entertaining out of something boring, and that was also a big challenge.
It's stuff you can, everyone can somehow see what we're doing there because everyone has some experiences with that, and I think it's a good thing to open people up to talk about topics like this, and it's cool that a game can help us with that.
People get chills. I love it when people play it and they just put the headset down, like, whoa, I got chills. That's very rewarding.
The most rewarding aspect for us is like right now when we're at the convention and normal people, normal players play the game, and you can see on their faces and in the comments afterwards that they can relate, and this game is something that they feel talks to them. That's the biggest reward, for sure.
Get people to open up and to not be ashamed to talk about emotional topics. And this game shows that maybe people who have problems and do not dare to talk about them, that it can be easy to open up and it's no taboo topic. So I think that's one of the main goals we have with the game.
I think developers shouldn't be afraid to tackle real issues in their games, and I think a lot of them do. I think a lot of games that maybe aren't meant to tackle issues will help players with those issues. So you can have a game like Grand Theft Auto can help you out of your depression because you can relate to the main characters' lives and struggles and see yourself in some of the portrayals in that game. If you make a game with layers and you take into consideration that players are after different experiences and that their subjective experiences will be inserted into the way they play and what they take out from the game, I think many games should and could and absolutely do tackle different issues.
At some point I thought it would be fun or interesting to do a serious game with serious topics. So that was one of the main motivations to do a game like this. And now we're looking forward to another game as well, a funny game as well in the future. Again, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to be able to write jokes again. But it's also very rewarding to do a game about a serious topic for once.
This game was really, I like to say, a personal masterclass for myself because I'm coming from films and did not know how to make games. And in films, you're always taught that the best way to learn how to do films is to make films. So the best way was to make game.
The foundation is all very personal observations of society and the lead designer's own trip back and forth to work every day, observing the people around him and how we're all like part of a big system where humans pile up on buses, trains, subways, and then flow into the city. That's the initial observation, and then the whole game and the theme of depression and hallucinations and the character having a fragile mind, making him desperate to escape this situation, came about after that. So it's personal and also very inspired by literature and a movie. Even Charlie Chaplin dealt with some of the thematics in his movie Modern Times, which is about humans versus technology, which is also a theme in our game. We pick from different sources of inspiration, but then the hard challenge is, converting this into something that's uniquely a video game.
And what would you suggest to the game industry and the people that wants to make emotional narrative games? Like, what would your tips would be?
That's a good question. Take your time with topics like that because these are topics that affect people, and think about what you're putting out there basically.
I think you have to ground them in your own experiences in some way, or at least talk to people who have had experiences and try to translate those into a game. But the more personal, the better, I think.
The arena is not the best place to showcase narrative games because people cannot, well, not narrative games, but atmospheric games, because people are to dive into something with other people pushing around and screaming just next to you and waiting you. So maybe our game is getting a little butchered by this.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.